Imagine the team it must take of highly experienced strategic and tactical resources to provide leadership to clients as a marketing agency in today's dynamic and diverse digital economy. Beyond the impact of disruptive technologies that have literally transformed traditional media, agency professionals today must deal in a spectrum of sectors including human capital, healthcare, finance, accounting, legal, even technology, and beyond. Just how does today's marketing agency help clients increase market share? Not just to startup organizations, but global powerhouses. Greetings, everyone. It's Friday, May 16, 2014, and this is Tech Talk with Technology Association of Georgia President Tino Mantella. I'm your guest host, Frank Baia. This edition, we focus on the challenge of delivering results from marketing agency services in today's dynamic digital economy. Just what is required to successfully market, and just what are some of the strategies companies are investing in right now? Up to the Tech Talk, we speak with Leslie Vickrey, founder and CEO of ClearEdge Marketing. After working for years as a marketing executive in the IT services industry, Leslie became convinced of the need for a marketing firm that offered clients first-class corporate marketing services from a professional who had the sales and business perspective often overlooked in typical marketing functions. She founded today's highly successful ClearEdge Marketing 8 years ago to do just that. Leslie is also the co-founder of an organization called ARA to focus on breakthroughs and success made by women who have broken through barriers, innovated, and learned on the support of mentors and organizations to achieve their goals. The Tech Talk turns to the insights from a proven professional on the front lines of how to provide marketing leadership and expertise to a diverse group of clients in a dynamic market space of today's global digital economy. We speak with Leslie Vickrey, founder and CEO of ClearEdge. This edition of Tech Talk is brought to you by GlobalSpeak.com, new media consultants, corporate video and audio communications, video and audio production and distribution, live and virtual event production. Tag TV and Tag Radio is a service of GlobalSpeak.com, creatively delivering powerful marketing, video, and audio solutions. Leslie, welcome to Tech Talk.
Hi, Frank. Thank you for having me.
What a great opportunity for our listeners. I can't think of anyone who isn't interested and even challenged by the current situation as far as, quote-unquote, the marketplace is concerned. ClearEdge Marketing has been around for quite some time, about 8 years, if I recall, 8 or 10 years. But I know you've got a fairly extensive background in IT prior to getting involved in ClearEdge. Maybe start with that. Tell us a little bit about your background.
Sure, thank you. So, it's interesting looking back over the past 18 years now in the tech marketing space. I used to work for a company. We were about $1 billion in annual revenue, and I headed up their marketing initiatives. And interestingly, in that particular industry, it was a merger of an Atlanta-based company and a Florida-based company, and I helped manage the merger and acquisition. And I believe we had probably 8 to 10 different tech companies at that time that we were integrating together. So I had quite a bit of experience on the tech services side of the house, especially within the market, and looking at just different ways to bring those companies together and go to market. And then from there, made a decision after the integration to stay in Chicago, where our company happens to be headquartered, and make a go at starting ClearEdge Marketing, which focuses on the tech sector.
One of the things that we have an opportunity at Tech Talk is to talk to so many verticals, and one of the things that we often end up saying is that it's the same thing, only different, meaning that each one of the verticals have gotten involved in disruptive situations that are very similar. Obviously, the implementation is specific to their individual markets, but clouds, apps, mobile, high-speed connectivity, and now we're into not just analytics but predictive analytics. Tell us a little bit from a marketing consulting standpoint. How do you really handle each one of those situations when they come at you? That in some cases that part about there's some similarities in terms of maybe some of the technical issues that are impacting their industry, but obviously each one is interpreted different. How do you go about successfully marketing in a tech space?
Sure, it's interesting. A lot of the companies we work with are actually across different verticals and sectors within technology. So they range from, it could be high tech in general as an industry, all the way to financial services in healthcare and manufacturing and so forth. So what's interesting in working with companies, we're just helping a data analytics or big data company go to market with their messaging as they're looking to triple in size in the next 3 years. And one of the things that we found was, when they were talking to, let's say, a healthcare or financial services organization, a lot of the regulations were so strict and stringent that they actually wanted somebody with a really niche focus in that specific industry to help big data. So what we have found is in working in tech, and especially with kind of the growth of big data and data analytics, you really have to be specific with how you can help those companies in different sectors. So we have seen kind of a growing interest in becoming kind of niche or even more vertically focused within even the tech sector, depending on what that service is you're offering. So if you're a software company and it's a broad-based service, and you can sell that into any industry, but let's say you're selling into the HR organization, for example, that's one thing. But if you're selling data analytics and going in and helping a company change the way in which it goes to market, that's another story. You may need to be a little bit more experienced in that specific vertical as well.
Now, obviously, there was a day back in, I guess, the Madman era that creativity was equally as important to media. In fact, obviously, I think creativity had, quote-unquote, the clear edge in those days. Talk a little bit in terms of messaging. Does messaging matter as much as the medium? I mean, it's almost a McLuhan type of, isn't the medium become the message when we talk to things like social media and analytics?
Right. I mean, messaging is so important now, especially when it comes to SEO, search engine optimization, and analytics in general. If your message doesn't resonate or isn't something that's searchable or makes sense with the target audience from a sales standpoint, you're putting up a lot of barriers as a company that you don't need to. The other thing with messaging that I think is really important is, listening and understanding how your sales organization is going to market and what they're saying to clients and prospects, and then comparing that to what you have on your website, what kind of blogs you're writing, what kind of, tweets you're posting, and what your LinkedIn strategy is. If there's a disconnect between, how sales is selling, how product is developing a specific product to go to market, and what you have in your marketing, there's a serious problem. And sadly, we see that fairly often, actually, a disconnect between those kind of three entities. So we find doing even an external quick brand audit and assessment to see what clients and prospects and analysts believe it is that you do and how you go to market can actually uncover a lot of really great and interesting information about how your sales approach is effective and where it can be improved, and where there could be a potential disconnect with what you're known for in the market from a marketing and branding standpoint, and what that gap is to where you really want it to go or to become.
No, obviously, go ahead. Go ahead.
It's just critical. It's a cornerstone of everything you do, and should take into consideration from every piece of integrated sales and marketing. It's that cornerstone piece.
Now, the question becomes, you've got so many layers and tentacles. Are the clients really keeping up the culture within the client organization? I mean, there was a day when we could clearly understand who the C was, the CTO, the CIO, the CEO, Chief Marketing Officer. Are you now engaging any single individual, or do you engage a round table of executives? And are they culturally, quote-unquote, from say a digital economy standpoint, up to speed in understanding the kind of dynamics that you're talking about?
Right. Well, it's interesting, and throw another layer on there now, the CDO, so the Chief Data Officer or the Chief Digital Officer, and that'll vary depending on which sector you're going after. So a lot of financial services companies now are adding a Chief Data Officer, and they're actually considering that outside of tech. Although they partner with technology, they're aligned with the business and technology. So it's even taking it a step further. And then when you have the digital officer, you're really saying what's happening with marketing and technology. What is the future of the CIO? Is that going to become more like a CDO position where, because digital is so important to the organization, that marketing actually starts to, maybe own a little bit more of that side of the business. So it's an interesting debate right now of who do you sell into, and I think that the question is it's ever evolving, and it's evolving by sector. You have chief HR officers, you have chief procurement officers, you have chief sales officers, chief marketing. Again,
well, it's like the cliche about herding cats. It's a case where I guess the dynamics of client account management and account service has got to be extremely vulnerable in terms of, do you actually have sort of a discipline that you try to attempt to set up in terms of a sort of an organizational relationship that kind of coordinates or orchestrates the relationship, or do you try to move according to what the client really requires or would prefer?
Right. I think the most important thing is to make sure as an organization that you're focused. So if you spread the net too wide, you're going to have your account reps or sales reps out trying to sell within a company and not necessarily having the right message to resonate with the exact right audience. So I do think a lot of that has to go into the prep you do today and the outreach that you're doing when you're selling into a company. Our advice is always to put together a very focused program. We call it a target account program where we work with clients and we'll say, okay, so maybe you're feeling like you're not breaking into enough new accounts. And, so net new logoed business, we would say. So we would, have a conversation with the head of sales and the account managers to talk through, tell us about who you're selling into. And by who we mean the type of companies, the size of company, who really are the buyers and the influencers. And then we come back to them with an approach that says, here's a multi-touch campaign for you, but it's very focused and very specific. So we're giving recommendations on here is who you should target with this message. So I'll just give you one example. We did a campaign for a Salesforce and an automation basically project where we knew that there were different targets within the Salesforce and SharePoint world. So it was a Salesforce and SharePoint integration project, and we knew there were buyers who could be the head of sales, head of marketing, the CFO, and IT. So basically by doing one campaign ultimate message, we knew for each one of those other target audiences on the list, we needed a very specific and focused message for each one of those audiences because it's different. So the more you can focus and hone in on a message that resonates with a specific audience, the more successful you will be. So we tend to not scattershot, but do more focused campaigns and outreach that will generate a larger and better return.
Add another layer. Now when we're talking about innovation, where there's maybe a solution that hasn't even ever existed, that issue about back in the day we would have talked about push and pull as far as sending a market and branding it. You either pull it through or push it through the marketplace. How do you deal with innovation and in terms of a product that solves a problem that maybe some customers don't even realize or recognize that they have yet? And then another part of that same question is, how do you identify competition in terms of the client when you don't know who's going to be popping out of the box next week with the latest, greatest?
Right. Staying up on, just to start with your second question and then move back into the innovation question, when I had mentioned earlier about doing a quick brand assessment of your company, a big piece of that is knowing your competitive landscape. And obviously there's, depending on the size of your company, there's national competitors, there's local, regional, that list can change. And, you really want to keep an eye on what your competition's doing, but at the same time, you don't want that to completely, cripple or hinder the way in which you go to market. So it's very important as you're looking at an audit and an assessment of your business and what the landscape looks like. like to keep an eye on the competition and know that what you're trying to do within the market and what you want your reputation to be within the market there. So competition is critical because, like you said, in technology, there's a lot of consolidation. There's a lot of, the large players, the Oracles, SAPs, buying up mid-sized, really fast-growing tech companies. So you have to keep an eye on what's happening in the competitive landscape and know, as your own business, what are you looking to do in 3 to 5 years? Are you hoping to be one of those companies who gets acquired by, one of the bigger players or merges in with one of your competitors? So that piece is critical to how you go to market and the way you think about your products and so forth. And, with innovation, it's interesting. We've worked on a CIO survey for a company by the name of Harvey Nash for the past going on almost 9 years now, and it's over 2,000 plus CIOs and C-level tech executives worldwide being surveyed, and innovation always comes up as one of the top 5 initiatives that are a priority. But the way in which people define innovation is very different, and I think an interesting point to make that innovation could be taking something that already exists within technology or within your business and doing something different with that technology that maybe makes an impact internally to you, but it maybe doesn't feel innovative to your client or your buyer, but it's definitely innovative to your business. So what we've learned over the years is that innovation actually means many different things to different buyers. So it's important for you as a business to define how important is innovation to you as your business. Or I believe it was the founder of Twitter who said, we're just doing something that everyone else did. We're just doing it a lot better. Whereas a lot of people would have thought Twitter was, pretty innovative. So I think innovation is defined specific to your business. We also work with a group called the Chicago Innovation Awards, and we help them with PR and social media and applications for different companies who are applying to be seen as an innovative leader within their space. And it's interesting, innovation can also be seen as disruptive in a positive way. Are you going out and disrupting your industry and doing something new and different? So if there are 10 companies who do the same exact thing and you really have a hard time differentiating between yourselves, what is the one thing, if it's the way in which you deliver or the way in which you sell or you brand and go to market, that you can do differently. So I think innovation is critical, but keeping an eye on that competitive landscape and kind of marrying the two can really take your company to that next level, depending on what it is you're looking to do.
Now, focusing now into even a more granular question, you've covered a lot of territory on a broad spectrum, although you talked about focusing as far as an organization and with your client relationships, even some of the target new business development that you're working with. But maybe help a little bit with our audience and go into some of the main strategies that tech companies are investing in right now.
Sure. So it's interesting, I think, depending on what stage the tech company is. So we work with quite a few VC-backed tech companies all the way to, large, multi-million, huge companies who are investing in different ways. And I would say that each kind of company, depending on which stage that they're in, are investing in different things. But some of the things that we have seen that works really well, first of all, making sure everything is completely integrated in marketing. So if you are looking at things like, being in an industry that is completely, evolving and innovating all of the time, you want to make sure that you also have a forward approach. So making sure things like surveys, thought leadership surveys, and going to market with data and interesting insights that potentially the media would love to report on. So if you look at, if you have a database of, let's say, 5,000 plus companies and you want to look at a specific research topic or something that is different, you can do a thought leadership survey that serves as a sales campaign. It serves as PR, serves as social media. It gives you a piece of thought leadership. You can have events off of it. There's a lot of legs that one marketing initiative, such as a thought leadership survey, can give you. The other interesting thing is, a lot of tech companies have different partners. some of those partners would be willing to help sponsor and offset the cost of the survey to be a part of that. So there's a lot of kind of creative things you can do to, A, differentiate yourself and give you that thought leadership and that original content that you're always, a lot of companies are always asking, we don't have time to write the content. We wish we could keep up with blogs. We have subject matter expertise, but we can't do it. The thought leadership surveys are a great way to accomplish huge goals in marketing.
Well, to look at it from one perspective and not take advantage of the opportunity in talking with such an expert about the other side, we've covered areas that are the main strategies. Maybe just briefly, and we are quickly running out of time, but I think I'd be remiss in not asking, where, in your opinion, are tech companies missing the boat?
Sure. So, I believe that, from an event marketing standpoint, there are a lot of opportunities where companies are not necessarily connecting directly with their buyers or effectively using events in a way to one-on-one connect with them. So, for example, I was just at a conference in Atlanta, actually, for an M&A advisory firm. There were about 300 leaders in attendance, and there were, a great mix of external speakers, and the attendees left. I know I left. Gartner was one of the keynotes, and, I left with really great insights on different topics happening within the tech sector. But within that, think about how many times you make a cold call or, look at things that, you're trying to pitch into a company. It's really hard to get their attention. However, if you can put together really compelling content and a group of people who well represent a topic that your, audience would appreciate, then you could get them in a room for a breakfast seminar or half-day conference and really have a much better chance at making a connection with that person. So I would say, we still hear a lot of companies, which, cold calling should always be in a mix for sales outreach, depending on, what your company does, but having that comfort level of doing that, but also looking at a way to better take advantage of how could you, if you're a tech company and you have these assets internally and you have relationships with, vendors and people who are potential speakers, how could you bring that relationship or that interaction to more of a one-on-one or one-to-many interaction by bringing this group of people together and being seen in that way? I would say taking better advantage of event marketing is definitely an area that people could do a better job of.
Now, one of the things I know that you've co-founded an organization to promote women in tech. Before we end our conversation, tell us a little bit about that.
Oh, thank you. It's an initiative we're very proud of. It's called ARA. It's A-R-A. It stands for Attract, Retain, and Advance Women in Technology. Having been in the tech space for over 18 years now and still going to many events in our industry and seeing very few women in attendance, especially in leadership roles, this initiative became very important to us. So first of all, we know there's a lack of talent in technology in general, and this starts at a very young age. So put the gender aside, it's really something that we're passionate about, finding the right talent. But with that, I started a group with two of my friends about 8 years ago, Jane Gilligan and Megan McCann, and we started a Women in Tech Executive Networking Dinner Group where we have roughly on a quarterly basis, about 65 women at the director, VP, C-suite level get together for dinner, and we realized, there's an opportunity with up-and-comers for them to be together as part of this group as well. So we decided to go to the hiring managers and talk to people and look at a way to really match kind of the senior women in technology with up-and-comers or people who were considering going into technology through ARA, which, again, it's really a mentoring platform and organization for attracting, retaining, and advancing women in technology. So we're looking to connect them through educational events, networking, and mentorship. We've been around for about a year and a half in Chicago and Seattle and New York, and we actually just had our first event in Seattle last week with over 300 women in attendance, and it's really taken off. So we're looking at launching nationally, and we actually have a few companies in Atlanta who are interested in getting on board and launching it there. It's something that we knew that there was interest and a need, but we didn't realize how much so, and we've been really, really pleased with the reaction and reception so far.
Unfortunately, we're quickly running out of time. Thank you so much for taking time out of your busy schedule to join us for a few minutes to talk about the company and to be with us on Tech Talk.